Welcome to another episode of the Pathology Network podcast. My name is Titus O'Connor and I'll be your host. Over the next few episodes, we'll be talking to Dr. Joshua Kibera, the founder and CEO of the Pathology Network, about his experience building and scaling ALIS, which was TPN's most widely used diagnostic management system. We are phasing it out and replacing it with Space 360. We thought we'd celebrate it and reflect the journey we've taken over the past 7 years with a few podcast episodes. So buckle up because it's going to be a long ride. We'll be talking about everything from building software in Kenya to the governance issues around health technology, securing funding, and the challenges African startups currently face. We hope you enjoy. Welcome, Dr. Joshua, to the show. You and I are not strangers, but there are listeners who don't know you. How would you describe yourself in a few words?
That's a difficult one, because that changes from probably year to year or day to day. But I am a parent. I'm a father. I have a family, and that's a big part of my identity. Of course, I'm a husband. Also, in building these businesses, some people have described me as a visionary, but I see myself more as somebody who is an enabler, an ecosystem enabler. One time I have a brother who he likes to study people. So he studies me and he said, Joshua, I think your gift is to look at a system and you're able to see where the bottlenecks are and identify that one thing that if you fix it, it fixes everything else.
I think that's an apt description given all the work you've done building digital health systems for pathologists and hospitals.
Yeah, I love elegant solutions. I usually believe that there used to be this guy on TV. I don't know if people still watch him a lot. He was a psychologist who is famous, Dr. Phil. One time I remember something he said. He said that, problems are complex, can be very complex, but the solution is usually simple. So I like finding that simple solution to complex problems. So for example, the pathology network as a whole might seem a bit complex because it has many moving parts, but its components are very simple. When somebody logs in as a pathologist, they only do one thing. They receive cases and sign out the cases. They receive, they review, they sign out. That's it. They have not one action, they have 3 actions. Confirm that they've received the sample, review it, write your diagnosis, and sign it out. That's it. So it's very simple from a pathologist perspective, very simple from a receiving center perspective, very simple from a lab perspective, very simple from a ordering perspective. So the doctor who's ordering the test, they simply write the order and ensure that the payment has been made by whoever has supposed to make it, and package the sample. That's it. Like we have 3 things to do. And so by simplifying it for each person, you've solved a complex problem.
I'd love to take you back to tell me about the ALIS system. I believe that was the first system the pathology network ever developed. What sparked that initial idea for you? Was there a specific moment, or was it a patient case, or was it a problem you encountered that made you realize that the traditional diagnostic methods weren't enough?
There were 3 other systems before ALIS.
Really?
Yep.
I think ALIS is the most widely known.
Yes. Nothing starts from nowhere, for sure. When I first started my lab in Meru, I realized that I needed software. and there was just no off-the-shelf software for tissue pathology labs, for surgical pathology. Most of the systems that were there were for other types of tests, for blood tests. And I was teaching at the time, so I was working part-time in my lab and full-time at the university. And I had patients who needed results. And I would come in the evening on my way home, and I would want to see that all the lab processes have been done, and all I need to do is sit down, review the cases, and sign them out. And I couldn't do that. Initially, we created a system using Microsoft Word, and I used, Word and Word folders. We created templates, reporting templates. So I hired one person. I would simply say, this is the diagnosis. And they would look for the template for that diagnosis, put it in, then I would come, review it, edit it, and sign it out in the evening. 2016 and 2016, 2017. We did it for about 2 years.
Yeah.
Developed templates, and I had 2 people in the office who were working with me.
What caused that change from the Microsoft-based system to now ALIS?
Yeah, so of course it was difficult, and I think I've told you all the problems that I've encountered, including that's the time that I met Martha, and I just started looking at the system as a whole, not just what I'm doing in my lab, but the whole thing. How does it work together? On top of that, I started taking jobs to help in helping to establish other people's labs in Kitengela and in Nanyuki. So I would be in Kitengela, I would be in Nanyuki, and I want to know what's going on in my lab and to sign in. Then sometimes I need help from another pathologist who's far away. I needed to send them some work for them to do. I needed to follow up, and so the system wasn't quite working well. Couldn't ship out the same files and templates and all of that, because I wanted that when the customers in my lab get a result from my lab, it has the same appearance. But if it was looked at by one of my friends, they didn't quite write it out in the same format or the same way as I used to do it.
Yeah.
And of course the emails. So sometimes you create a report, you send out the report on email, and guys just don't read the emails. Send an email, it goes to the bottom of the hospital inbox.
Yeah.
So then the doctor calls a week later, 2 weeks later, very angry. Results are delayed. What's going on? First of all, the default position is, I'm sorry, I may have delayed it because, again, I didn't know. I had no system of knowing whether, I couldn't tell immediately if it was delayed. We had to go back to our records manually and look at, because what we used to do is that we would rename the file in the folder.
Yeah.
We'd rename it as complete. So it would be, the lab number dash pending, the lab number dash complete, something like that. So once a case has been completed, we would rename the file in our data, it's kind of like a database. It was really just a folder. Would rename that file to complete. So I'd have to go back to our physical register, find the name of the patient, then see the month, go back because we were putting the folders by month, and then, but eventually we realized we could just search for the file name. So we could search for the name of the patient, and Microsoft would look for that among all the files and find the file, and then we can see if was it complete or not, and we could look at the sign out date. It simply wasn't practical to scale it. Yeah, so there were so many problems. So I started looking for a way to create a system where people can just log in for themselves and download their reports. So I created a website.
This was
In 20. Okay, so the first thing I did is I tried to create the first version of ALIS, which failed because the software engineer was a software engineer we worked with tirelessly for 6 months, meeting every day in the evening, about an hour, sometimes up to 8, talking about the software, planning it. He was coding it from raw PHP, and we were going to launch it. And he worked really hard from around June to December 2017. Then he went home for Christmas, and in January, he was supposed to come back, and we launched the software in our lab. So this was going to be the first version, and it was called Smart LIS. Yeah, but we never launched it because he got a scholarship that December to do his master's in Canada.
Oh,
so,
no.
Yeah. So 6 months of work
wasted.
Yeah. But we learned a lot. I can't say it was wasted. I still am very grateful for that period because the way that I was approaching the software design was maybe not the best. I looked for another software engineer. I was led to somebody, but he really let me down. He just strung me along. And then I realized he wasn't really serious. He wasn't telling me that he wasn't going to do any work, and he wanted a lot of money, and I didn't have any money. And so we eventually, after 3 months with him in early 2018, that didn't work. Then I designed my own website using a tool called Joomla. I don't know if you know.
Yeah, I've heard of Joomla.
You've heard of Joomla?
Yeah.
I don't know if it's people still use it. It's a great CMS, and so I created a Joomla platform where my lab members could log in and download their results. So it was being used by my lab. So my staff members started uploading client results to this portal, and then customers could just log in and download. And that was that.
And during this period, how is the workflow like? Are you seeing changes in the processes as you're developing these systems?
Well, it was a little bit better using the website, but the phone calls are still there because people couldn't see the process. So if they didn't see their results ready, then they didn't know what was going on. So they'd still call to ask, how are our results? How long are they going to take? When are they going to be out? All of that. So I still wanted to design a proper software that tracked everything. And one of my customers introduced me to a young developer called Steve, who had fair prices and also had developed a software system for them. And so I met with this young guy, and we simply, clicked. He was passionate about software engineering, passionate about building technologies. He was very attentive and wanting to understand what the problem was and what we're trying to solve. And then his prices were reasonable, and we just hit it off. And I shared with him what we were doing with Smart LIS, and he was willing to start again. And so within 3 months, he had built a brand new software. I was really happy with Steve. And so we started in October of 2018 working with Steve. And by January, we were using the very, very first version of ALIS in our lab. So the very, very first version of ALIS was launched in January.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you enjoyed it, do not forget to like, share, and subscribe. Episode 2, we'll be talking with Dr. Joshua about building the company. Stay tuned. Thank you.